it's Suzanne A. Wells, your host, and this is eBay the Right Way. Today's date is September 20th, and this is episode number 131. My guest is Julie in Minnesota. No announcements this week, so we will jump right in.
Hello, eBay sellers. Today I have Julie for the seller interview. And where are you located, Julie?
I'm located about half an hour south of Minneapolis, St. Paul, 20 minutes south of the Mall of America in Farmington, Minnesota.
Okay. Do you know where Bloomington is?
Yes, that's where the Mall of America is.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, my
Yes.
brother was born there.
Okay.
My dad worked with Dow Chemical and got moved around a bit when we were little. So that's our connection to your location. And my mother's from Florida, so Minnesota was not a good fit for her. So after Minnesota, then we came to Atlanta. So anyway, of course, I don't remember it. It's just the stories of how brutally cold it is. So anyway, okay, so let's start off with what brought you to eBay and when?
Well, I've always been thrifty. Some people would say cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer economical.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always enjoyed garage sales, and I still can remember the first garage sale I went to as a child by myself. I remember what I bought and how much I paid for it.
Really?
So I've always enjoyed going to garage sales. I mean, all these toys that were brand new to me for, pennies on the dollar. And, I didn't have a whole lot of toys growing up that were brand new. So that just fascinated me. And then along the way, I was introduced to thrift stores. Well, my whole family was outfitted at thrift stores. I decorated my home in thrifty chic from thrift stores. And so that's kind of the background there. But the incident that really started me on my path that ended up at eBay was Susan Boyle. You remember Susan Boyle?
Oh, the singer.
Yes. Well, I heard one day on the news that she had performed on Britain's Got Talent. And the reporter said, go to YouTube and check out her performance. Well, I had never been on YouTube. So I thought, well, I'm going to check it out. So I listened to her performance. And of course, it's like Facebook too. You go on there and all of a sudden 2 hours have gone by and you looking around, and I came across some crafting videos. And I'm a paper crafter. I like scrapbooking and that sort of thing. Well, I was watching these crafters and I thought, I can do that. I can show people the things that I've crafted. I don't have a lot of close friends that craft, so it was kind of like I do it by myself. So here, open this community of people that I could share my love of crafting. So I started in 2013. I started a YouTube channel.
You did? Okay.
I did. And
Good.
so, I'd show the crafts that I would make. Well, then I noticed some crafters were going to thrift stores and picking up like vintage lace and buttons and all these wonderful things that they could craft with. And I thought, well, I can do that. So I went to the thrift store and particularly looking for things I could craft with. Well, after a while, of course, I got more items than I could craft with in a lifetime. But I noticed other crafters were selling the stuff that they were showing on YouTube. At that time, Etsy was around, or they would just show it on their YouTube channel and sell it and like invoice through PayPal. So I thought, well, I can do that too. So at that time, there was another website that was similar to Etsy. It was called Zibbit. And it was for vintage things and crafting things and that kind of stuff. So in 2015, I opened my Zibbit store. And I would go to the thrift store, pick things up to sell, and show all my subscribers the things that I was selling. They'd go over to Zibbit. They would purchase it. Then the next week I'd go to the thrift store, stock up on crafting items, and I just, continued to do that. Well, then as I watched on YouTube again, I came across some resellers. And I'm at the thrift store anyway, and I'm seeing the things that they're selling. It's like, well, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had heard this one reseller had gone to the thrift store and found this vintage child's bed sheet. I don't remember what character it was. Well, it's like, well, I can do that. And so I started looking at sheets, pillowcases, comforters, blankets, towels, curtains, and all that kind of stuff. So I was really heavy into the linens and, of course, crafting. So let's see. I guess in 2015, I opened my eBay store. And all this while I'm working my healthcare job. Well, the reason a lot of people haven't heard about Zibbit is because they don't promote themselves. So almost all my sales were through my self-promotion of doing it on my YouTube channel and my subscribers seeing the things that I was selling, and they would go to Zibbit. Very few of my sales, I think, were organic. And that was just too much. I'm going thrifting, I'm selling on Zibbit, I'm selling on eBay. I'm working my healthcare job. Something had to go. So I did discontinue Zibbit, but I did take some of the things I was selling on Zibbit and sold it on eBay, and was making more money on eBay than I was on Zibbit. So in 2017, my mom was moving from her home of 30 years, and she wanted to move to a senior community, live in an apartment there. And there were things going on at that time that I noticed, but I didn't really think that much of. But after she got settled in her apartment, I realized that she was having memory issues. And she was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which is not really dementia or Alzheimer's. It's just kind of your brain just forgets things at a very high rate. And so I realized that, I wanted to help her the best I could. And so I did that for a while I was working and selling on eBay. But a couple instances happened along the way when I was at work that I realized I can't work and care for her at the same time. So I kind of took a step back, and I realized that God had been preparing me, had been making the steps in my path, that he gave me a new skill set that I could stay home and sell on eBay. And I'm making my own schedule. So at any time my mom needed assistance, I could be there for her. And that was very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2019, I made the decision to leave my healthcare job of 35 years to help assist my mom and sell on eBay. Now, I must say my husband has a very good job, and I wouldn't necessarily have to work, but I want to as long as I can. So this seemed to be a perfect fit for me.
Well, and I love hearing that you laid the groundwork for online reselling, and then it wasn't a very tough transition to just do that full time. And the way eBay is so flexible, you can come and go with it all day. That's what I do. I'm just work a couple hours. I need a break, and so when you're a caregiver, you've got appointments, you've got to be with your loved one, and there's probably days you don't touch it at all because that's just the day you're helping. And then there's days that are better, and your loved one is resting and calm, and you can dive in and do a little bit more. So, so when you left your healthcare job, did you take early retirement?
No, I was only 57. So it was essentially, I was just quitting.
Okay.
But, I left in 2019. And of course, we all
Oh,
know what happened in 2020.
wow. That
I
was
mean,
divine timing.
exactly. I mean, there is no way that I could go to my job every day and come home and care for my mom with, the potential of her getting sick.
Hmm.
So, I mean, everything just worked out. And also at that time, my eBay store, I just had the starter 250 listings, and occasionally they would be a promotion. But my store was at 250. And I knew that I probably needed to up that to the next level of store. Well, then with 2020 happening, all of a sudden I had 1,000 listings and 10,000 in selected categories. So I
Wow.
didn't even have to pay for the upgrade in my store. So it pushed me then. And within a matter of months after that, I was looking at close to 1,000, and I had started the year at 250, 250 items.
Hmm.
And even during that time, we brought my mom home to live with us for 10 weeks because her facility was not letting anybody in. Even though she was in independent living, nobody could go in.
Hmm.
And I was setting up her meds and getting her groceries. So I just said, Mom, you need to come and stay with us during this time. And so all through that, I was able to ramp my store up to 1,000 items. And I currently have a little over 1,700, and I'm aiming for 2,000 by the end of the year.
Okay. And I would like to delve into the kinds of things you sell, but this is, I don't think, a coincidence. I started doing private picks, going to people's homes. And last week I went to a lady's house. Her mother-in-law had recently died, and she had her entire house was taken over with her mother-in-law's craft stuff. I
Oh
mean,
my.
she did quilting and cross stitch and wooden crafts and made dolls and everything you can imagine. And so I did purchase some items from her, but it didn't even make a dent in what she had. So, and I was like, what do I do? Do I put all this together? Well, I got a quilt top. I separated that out separately. 900 carded DMC floss things, 900. So I put all those together. And then the rest of it was like thread spools, all different kinds, knitting needles, crochet needles, notions like bias tape and zippers and all that stuff. And it's really hard to price that when you have that whole jumble of different things, because you're not going to find a listing exactly like what you have. So I guess I'm being selfish here and I'm going to pick your brain. But I've heard other people coming across this too, because crafters have a lot of stuff. You want to work on multiple projects at a time. You get bored with one and switch to a different one. And so I can see this would be helpful for the listeners if they come across this, because well, how do I list all this? So maybe talk about some of your listings. Do you list small, inexpensive things one at a time, or do you lot them up? Or what is your philosophy on how to do that in the most efficient way?
I guess it really just depends. I oftentimes look at other listings and see how it works best, or I've tried doing things in singles, and when it's not selling, or it's just not cost efficient, then I'll lot them up. Because like, especially say like card makers, for Christmas, they want to make 100 cards. Well, they need 100 of the same stickers. So if they can buy a lot of stickers, that's the way they want to do it. Or if they're going to, sew so many, say, American Girl type dresses, they need, they want to do the same one. They have to have so many of the same buttons, or, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. So oftentimes I think lotting it up, and I will get questions. Would you mind just selling a few of these? And if it's worth my time, I might make up a listing for them. Or they'll just go ahead and buy the lot of it. So, like in a lot of the small things, I guess, lot it up.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, this is Ross, the host of Smells Like Humans. Each week we talk about the curious things that people do. Fans say it's like hanging out with your funny friends. If you like lighthearted conversation, personal stories, and a hint of psychology, chances are we are discussing something relevant to you, like relationships, dreams, phobias, weddings, work, cults, 100 topics and counting. Sometimes silly, sometimes serious, but always fun. Please join us, because no matter who you are, we all smell like humans. Please click the link in the show notes.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know till you put it out there and you start getting questions. In that huge lot of stuff was buttons. I just put 2 pounds of buttons because it was, of course, I looked through them to see if there was any Bakelite or anything valuable, but there wasn't. It was just your basic buttons. So I just did it by the pound because I saw other sellers doing that. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize you could do that. So yeah, sometimes you just throw it out there and see what the questions are. Do you also do fabric?
Oh, I counted to make sure I have 12 totes of fabric,
Oh, really?
plus some in my office here that are still on the upholstery fabric that's still on the rolls. I think people
Okay.
buy large bolts of upholstery fabric with a project in mind, and they never get around to it.
Mhm. And then there it is in the thrift store.
And even then I've done both where I've sold it the whole bolt, or I've sold it by the yard. It just kind of depends. Like I said, I've done both ways, and I found success both ways. I would prefer just to sell it all at once, especially if somebody's looking, to do a project themselves, or if they had, say, bought upholstery fabric for a seat cover, and one of the seats got torn or stained, and they're just looking for a yard, and they don't want the 12 yards that I have. So, it's just.
Do you look for specific brands? Obviously, vintage is going to be worth more, but that's what I would like to know because the brand is written on the edge unless they've cut it off.
Well, a lot of the vintage ones do not, and that is discouraging.
Frustrating.
So Waverly is good. Almost anything IKEA. I don't know why, but I've picked up several IKEAs and type fabrics, and they sell well. I found, the pajama brand Lands of Salzburg?
Yes, Lands. They make nightgowns.
Yeah, I found some flannel fabric and just tiny, tiny print at the edge. I almost had given up looking for the brand. It was that brand.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know they, put out fabric. I just assumed they made the pajamas. And so I can't remember exactly what, but that sold. I had several yards, and that sold for a big amount of money.
And their patterns are very recognizable because they have like the tiny hearts. I've seen them with teddy bears and with Mickey Mouse.
With this one, what drew my attention to it is it was blue. You know what toile means? That's the word popular.
It's like
and it was kind of
scene.
Right. And it can be just kind of like an outline of a flower. But anyway, that's what drew me to look at that fabric, because I don't usually pick up flannel, because even brand new flannel seems to get a little matted and it just doesn't look nice. But that design drew me to it. And then when I realized, and I could not find anything. I searched and searched. I could not find anybody that had ever sold a fabric So I assumed it was quite rare. So that was an exciting find.
Is there a minimum amount of fabric that you would sell, like a yard or half a yard? That's what trips me up, is like, is this even enough to fool with?
Um, if it's really unique, I have bought a yard, but if it's kind of neat but not really unique, then I would want a larger piece. But I find a lot of fabric panels that are like a craft that you do. So those are the smaller pieces. No, just, I found, I'm trying to think. I found this real retro, it looked like a denim fabric, but it wasn't denim. It was just lightweight cotton, but the pattern was denim and it had mushrooms on it. Well, of course, mushrooms are all the rage. And that was less than a yard. And I picked it up because I thought everybody or a lot of people are looking at mushrooms. And so that sold, super fast. So
I didn't know that. So you can make yourself an outfit out of mushroom fabric and then go in your kitchen with the Sears Mary mushroom stuff, and you could just disappear in the background.
I want to show you this.
Uh-huh. Yes, it's a mushroom.
That was the other thing. When I was watching YouTube, I noticed that crafters were crafting, mushrooms were popular. Well, my husband does wood turning. I said, can you turn me some mushrooms? Sure enough, he turned some mushrooms of various sizes and shapes. And I actually sent some of those mushrooms. I knew this YouTuber. I had corresponded with her. So I sent some to her as a gift, fully intending that she would show it in a video and people would come over to my store and buy the mushrooms. And so I've sold several sets that way. In fact, this one lady bought a couple sets and she contacted me and said, I'm planning for a wedding in 2024 and I want each guest to have a mushroom. And her centerpiece on the tables was kind of mossy woodland type thing. And she purchased 150 mushrooms for over $600 plus shipping.
Oh my, that's amazing.
So my husband was very busy.
So it's like a Hobbit theme or a
fairy garden
thing. Okay, fairy garden. Okay, yes. I had no idea that.
And the people that love it. So I go to, in Minneapolis, I go to a store that they give me their gently used bubble wrap and packing materials. And I mentioned what my husband made, and she is really heavy into fairy gardens, and right on the spot, she ordered, a couple dozen of them. So it's just like crazy. So it's kind of a side thing, but I have an outlet through eBay to sell these things. So, and you can't, when it's handcrafted, you can't really get your money back per se. But we had a big storm and a lot of trees came down. So my husband had zero invested in, the materials to make it. And then his spare time, his hobby time. So that's been kind of interesting. So I've been able to kind of draw him in because he doesn't understand any of this. I show him something that's just odd and unusual. He said, who would buy that? And, then when it sells, he just shakes his head. Or who I sell very well, like you do, the Franklin Covey planners, Filofax planners. He think, why, when people have a smartphone, would they use a planner, a paper planner? And I said, I can't explain it, but I sell them.
Well, you can tell them this. I know that anybody that deals in real estate, surveying, inspecting, they have documents. They have to keep documents with them that aren't electronic. So that's one reason, is in that line of work, there are these documents that you can't put on your phone. A lot of people don't want to look at their little phone and pull all that stuff up. They like a document. And me personally, I'm a writer downer. I have little steno pads.
Here are my notes.
Yeah, all over my house. Like, oh, I got to write that down so I don't forget. And
Yep.
it's just not the same when I'm putting it in my phone, even if I'm using the dictation mode. It's just something about that connection of your brain to your hand to the paper that is different.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I do know teachers that like those planners. So I think a lot of it is how your brain works and what you're used to. And I even know young people in their 20s that prefer something like that. So just because you can do something on your phone doesn't mean you want to, or you like doing it that way. In fact, my kids are like, Mom, you can do more than just talk on your phone. So it's a phone. It holds pictures. I look up things on eBay when I'm out in the world, listen to music. I don't like all these apps. It doesn't resonate with me. And I don't think I'm the only one. So maybe that will help him wrap his mind around it. But if not, all you have to say is, I don't need to know why they buy them. They just do.
Exactly.
Well, that's a good segue into talking about some things that you've sold. So since you have your legal pad of notes there.
Let me turn to that page. Well, I'm very excited to tell you about my funnest, biggest sale, because it was listening to one of your videos and talking about a BOLO. I had, never heard of this before, but I went to one of my favorite thrift stores, and in a pile of plush, I saw the backside of a bear. And I started pulling it out, and on its paws and on its face was Mickey's face. It was a pink, I think about 16-inch hidden Mickey plush.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, let's see, in 2016.
Oh.
So I'm not sure. I haven't found one or dealt with them lately, so I don't know what the market is doing now. But in 2016, it was pretty hot. And so I put that on auction. I believe that was probably one of my first auctions. And I had several bids, but it ended up at $615. And I paid.
Are you kidding?
And I paid $1.50 for it.
And you didn't know that until you saw the video explaining it.
Right. I probably would have picked it up because Disney is popular, but I knew exactly what it was right away because of your video.
Well, thank you for letting me know that, because sometimes content just goes out there and you don't know if it's reaching people. But that's the value of video as opposed to a podcast, because it can't show you things on a podcast. But this is a very visual business. You got to know what to look for. And so was it pink or purple?
It was pink.
It was pink.
And it went over to Asia.
I was going to ask, but it went to Japan.
I don't think I breathed until the thing was delivered. I mean, to have something so expensive going so far away.
Right. I feel that. So you paid how much for it?
$1.50.
And it sold for
$615.
And so you are a testament to these things are out there. And the smarter seller is the more successful seller. I'm sure we all pass over things that are valuable because we don't know. Okay, that is an amazing sale.
So then last Black Friday, my husband and I were out doing errands, and I said, "Do you mind if we stop at the thrift store?" So he's always, very good about that. And I saw this interesting, of course, we know that look for the odd and unusual, and it was a teapot, like a copper teapot. But on the lid were some space rockets. So when the water boiled, the space rockets spun around. So the space rockets were kind of connected to a ring that were connected to the lid. And I thought, well, that's unusual. Well, I picked it up, and it probably had never been used because it didn't appear to be used other than all the grime and gunk from sitting in a kitchen for years.
Mhm.
And so the label was in perfect condition. So I had a brand name, and inside was the pamphlet explaining. So I knew about it, and I looked it up quick in the store, and they had sold close to $700 in brand new with the box. So for $4.50 and a little, barkeeper's friend, I cleaned it up, and that one I just put it buy it now, because I could tell with my research that they just kind of came and went unless somebody had, what do you call it? They want to.
Oh, they have an alert set up.
Right. Unless somebody had an alert, these things come and go so seldomly that I thought if I did an auction, one person could find it during that time. So anyway, I just put it buy it now, and I started high at about $700, and I did a couple weeks later did take an offer of $450.
You've had some big sales.
Well, then also at that one in the toy, the hanging bags that they have at the thrift store, in
Like
the
the
toy
grab bags with a lot of
in the
stuff
toy
in it.
area, my eye just kind of went to it. I thought, that's not a toy. And inside were 2 Limoges trinket boxes. And I had seen a video on YouTube about trinket boxes, and this was Limoges.
Mhm.
So, and they were, like $2.99 for the bag. And so I listed those 2, and one sold for, what did I say? It's about $65. And I had the other one listed, and actually the buyer of the first came back and bought the second one. So
Mhm.
it was like $110 worth in that bag, that toy bag.
Mhm.
I'm thankful they put it in the toy section, because if they had put it in the other section, it might have been found by someone looking for that kind of.
Right. That's the fun of those grab bags, is you don't know what's in there. I always try to look for something that justifies purchasing it. And then you get home and it's just like Christmas. You start going through, it's like, what is this? What is this? And so, sometimes there's nothing. It's just junk.
Right.
But sometimes you do find that pearl in the oyster. And so those are fun, those grab bags.
Oh, in one time it was a bulldog, a heavy metal bulldog, and I realized it was for Mack truck, and it was a hood ornament.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, and it was just shiny, like it had never been installed. It was probably brand new. I mean, how unusual to find it. And I don't know anything, about vehicles or anything, but I'm up for it.
You've seen that Mack truck grill in your rearview mirror about to hit your car, so you knew that one.
So I got that, and that sold fairly quickly for $80. I mean, that thing was heavy. Yes. So, whatever. And, I'm so thankful. When I started, searching on your phone wasn't as big a thing, or I didn't really understand it. So you just kind of found something and thought, well, this is unique. This is unusual. It's not much money. Let's try it. But now, with our phones being able to look it up in Google Lens,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Google Lens is wonderful.
That's golden, isn't it?
Because I wanted to also mention that I look on freebie sites, and I found this lady in the town south of us that was cleaning out her basement of her kids' toys from the 70s. And she just wanted to give it away. And she mentioned, this stuff is in good shape. You can use it or sell it. And, as soon as she said sell it, I told her my story. So she's given me 3 loads of free toys. Well, there's all these little pieces, and I didn't have a lot of that, like the Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
Mm-hmm.
I knew of them, but I was able to use Google Lens to identify all these little pieces, because if you can put a name to these pieces, it'll sell a lot easier.
Right.
And I realized that these little Weeble wobbles were from the haunted house. It's the little Weeble wobbles with the kids going,
oh,
like they were
scared
afraid.
face, right?
Yes, scared face. And so I just sold just pieces from this haunted house for like $40. But again, Google Lens was able to identify all these little pieces. I found this little thing. To me, it looked like a plastic birdhouse. Well, it was the pet house from the Sunshine family
Mm-hmm.
from the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that were the cat and dog and their little cat and dog toy and their little feeding dishes. And because of Google Lens, I put the whole set together because I'd had no clue what this little birdhouse looking thing was. And again, that sold for the set sold for $50. And the person that bought that wrote back to me and mentioned that it's very, very rare to find this set all complete in such good condition.
Good for
So,
you.
yeah.
Well, now that begs the question, what free sites do you use that you've had success with?
Well, the one that I found with that is freebie alerts.
Okay.
And I know I've listed some of this stuff on your Facebook page, and someone said to make sure that the site allows you to sell it, because there are some freebie sites out there that this is just, for you to give and take
Right.
and not to sell.
I think some of those focus on the recycling aspect and keeping it out of the landfill, and they can be a little territorial about, what are you going to do with it? And it's really none of their business what you're going to do with it.
This lady, she just is so thankful that I've been able to find new homes.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't care that I was selling it. She was just grateful that it was going to be used. And she gave me some of her dolls from the 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
So I have kind of put them aside because they deserve some research. I don't want to get too wrapped up in it, but I don't know what I have. But she can definitely state that they were her dolls from the 40s, so I can at least put a date on them. But during in 2020, when people couldn't go to thrift stores, I would search these sites, and I've come across some other things. Like, this one lady was just getting rid of her creative memories things. Well, I love creative memories, and I probably made over $500 of stuff, and she would not take money. I said, "Here, let me pay you for this." I mean, brand new albums that she had never touched. She said, "Oh, no, you just take them." And I also, kind of going out of my comfort zone, this lady had 2 big totes of these game pieces, kind of like Dungeon and Dragons type pieces, but I believe it was called Heroscape.
Oh, yes.
Nothing.
That's a big one. Yes.
I knew nothing. So, again, I could do Google Lens. I researched on eBay, and I made several lots. I mean, I can't imagine how many pieces there were. Probably 1,000 pieces. And it did take some time to set it up because I wanted to make sure people could see what they were getting, because this game, you kind of build on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I have probably sold 5 lots, probably made several $100s. So these are things that people were giving away, and this lady was just glad to have it out of her garage. She said, "Take totes and all." So you just kind of put yourself out there and say, do you have any other toys you're looking to get rid of? I'd be willing to give you something for it as well. So,
well, and I think people in that situation, they're just so overwhelmed with how much stuff they have, and their focus is cleaning out their house so they can move or whatever it is they're going to do. And maybe they don't need the money. I've reconnected with my high school English teacher, and she was volunteered the information about her investments. And she's like, I make more money in a month on my investments than I did in a whole year of teaching. And so money is not an object to her. And so there's people like that, and they're just like, "Yeah, just take it. I don't care. Get it out of here. I don't want to deal with it." And, that's the kind of people we want to look for, is the ones that aren't stuck on, what are you going to do with it? And I do pay people for things, but I keep hearing about this, just the frenzy of downsizing. And if you've been in a house for decades, you don't even know what's in there. You
Mhm.
know, it's just things get put in closets and sit there for 20 years untouched. So they're in excellent condition. So,
I was at the thrift store and this lady saw that I had several pieces of fabric, and she said, "Oh, do you sew?" And we just started talking. And a lot of times I try to cut things short because, like, I think I've heard you say, when I'm at the thrift store, I'm working. I'm
mhm.
not there, to, like, on senior day, I'm able to go to the senior day discount. They're just there to socialize. But anyway, I did start talking to this lady because she just kind of seemed like she needed someone to talk to. Come to find out, she'd been cleaning out her mom's house and she was desperate to get rid of things. And it came to the point she'd been to dropping stuff off at Goodwill, and she's just like, all this stuff. And she said, she saw that fabric. My mom has fabric. Would you like it? So because I took the moment to, to talk to her rather than just kind of answering the question and moving on, I was able to get some fabric from her. So just kind of those. And I'm not really tend to be a social person when I'm out and about, but sometimes it can pay. Or just I found this other lady that I talked to, and she has different connections, and maybe we can set something up someday to she does with house clean outs and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, that's a good connection, and professional organizers.
Because my mom, when she moved, we brought in a senior with Senior Move Magic.
Okay.
And it's we kind of needed that person there that didn't have a connection to all this stuff, because I could only help my mom so much with moving. So we needed this impartial person coming in and helping her make her piles. And she found out what I did, and she said, "Well, I'm doing this house clean outs. Would you mind helping me?" And I thought, this is going to be a gold mine. But the first house I went to, she was hoping that I was just going to, like, essentially buy it all out and not cherry pick. And I said, I'm not really in the position just to come in and buy all this stuff out. And I walked away with 2-3 things. It was a lot of junk.
Yeah.
And so we kind of went our separate ways, because I didn't think that was she had different expectations than what I had. And I don't think we would ever really come to an agreement. But those options are there. They're out there. These opportunities are out there. So,
Well, and that's what I've started telling people when I'm new to this private picking thing, but it does work. You just have to find the right people. And so I make an appointment to do an initial consultation, come out, see what they have, take pictures. And I tell them, I'm like somebody you're going to hire to remodel. We come out, we do an initial visit, see what the situation is. And then I go back home and do the research and come up with a price for what I want, and then go back and buy it, because I don't like having to research it on the spot and make a decision on the spot of how much I'm going to pay them. Because cash is limited. I don't want to pay somebody $500 for a truckload of stuff, a carload of stuff. I just want to do it in small increments. And then you develop a rapport with that person, and you can do several visits, and then they start telling their friends, and it kind of grows like that. But for people looking to get into this, you don't have to do an all or nothing on the first visit. You can assess what they have, because every kind of contractor, repair person, plumber, anybody that's going to come to your house and do work, they give you a price first. So I'm kind of going with that business model instead of the urgent on the spot thing, because I'm not comfortable making those decisions right then and there in front of them at their house.
mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that?
Well, I had a coworker that knew what I did, and she had a friend whose wife passed away, and she was a hoarder, and they had a storage unit. And that was probably back 2017 or so, when simply shabby chic linens were very popular.
Okay.
And she had boxes of that stuff that had never been it was out of the package, but had never been used. She just bought sheets and towels in hordes and never used them. And, I was excited beyond belief, but that was kind of on the spot. And so, I came in with what I wanted to spend, and he had in mind, really didn't have any clue. So I think he pulled a number and we were able to come in the middle, and I felt comfortable with that, but that's not in me to negotiate like that. So that was difficult. And, you have to be willing to walk away. And it's like, did I just spend 2 hours in here to walk away? Well, it still has to be, a deal. And
that can happen anywhere, at a garage sale, at a thrift store. Sometimes you don't find what you're looking for. And I'm not one to just buy something to have it to list. I want it to create profit. So that's a hard thing when you like to shop and you like to buy, is like, okay, wait a minute. Am I going to want to list this? Am I going to want to ship this? Is this really going to make enough money to be worth my time? And sometimes the best decision is walking away, because the next thing you go to might be that gold mine. You're one more step down the road. Okay. Well, I have one more question about craft supplies. And I have a lot of questions, so maybe we'll have you back on just for that. What is your best-selling craft item?
Well, I think fabric can be very lucrative, but I have a lot of it. Like I said, I have 12 totes of it. So volume wise, I'm bound to sell more. But I think creative memories to me is still selling well, especially if you can find the scrapbook pages and protectors. And people, they go to those parties and they buy stuff when they really probably don't want to buy stuff, and then they have it years later. Vintage stickers can do really well.
Yes.
Like Mrs. Grossman, and I've heard of those, the smelly scented stickers.
Right, scratch and sniff.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I did find a whole bunch of Mrs. Grossman stickers that I paid for about $1 for. And I think those sold for like $40, and those did go to Japan. So don't overlook the stickers.
Those usually come on a roll, don't they?
Or they can be just sheets.
Okay.
But I guess a lot of them do come on rolls. And also I've sold, I don't sell a lot of Halloween stuff, but I found some Halloween stickers that were kind of holographic.
Oh, fun.
They were still in the package, and the lady was a teacher, and she had been a teacher in the 90s. So, I knew they were about, that age range. And I always put in my listing that these are vintage stickers, and the adhesive might not be any good anymore. And especially if it's a closed package, I don't want to open it to find out. But
right.
So, I make sure it's clear that even though, and I kind of hesitate, do you call that new? I mean, it's new in the package, but the condition is not necessarily new.
I guess it's new old stock, and NOS is the acronym for that.
Right. But what would you put for condition when you're listing?
Well, if you put it in a vintage category, then I don't know that it asks for that.
Okay.
That's kind of the way around it. If it's in a vintage category, there are fewer item specifics, and it just is vintage. So I recall coming across that a few times where it didn't really ask. It was just vintage condition. So, but okay. So you have just been so helpful. I've learned so much talking to you. And we're getting near the end. So you chose the question about what would you advise new sellers or sellers getting into craft items? What kind of advice do you have?
For me, the biggest thing is educating myself. I mean, it seems kind of kind of simple, but I mean, there's so many things out there. YouTube being a big one, but talking to other people, if you've come across other people, sharing what you know with others. I mean, just educating is all I can say. Because like when I sell sheets, it takes a little bit of research, but if you can name the name of the bed sheet, like Ralph Lauren almost always names its patterns. And if you can put that name in there, that could sell it. But sometimes, there's the patterns are so vast that you can't find the pattern name, and it's best not to guess, but then learn what words you can use to describe it that will bring people to it. So like I said, just the education piece. I mean, I really enjoy your videos. They're very informative. The podcasts, I mean, they're great to listen to while oftentimes I listen to your podcast while I'm taking pictures, and you just can't get enough education. I've attended virtually the eBay opens and listened to the different what do you call them, speeches that they the different talks that they have about different subjects. And occasionally I just dive into something that I know nothing about, maybe to educate myself, or to think, no, I'm really not into selling that kind of thing. Don't really like, I don't like selling glass. I prefer not to sell clothing, though I've done both, but I still want to learn about it. So again, if I come across something that's spectacular that I've heard about, I can with confidence know that this is a good thing to pick up.
And there's that phenomenon, once you learn something, then you start seeing it. And you're thinking, did I not notice this before because I didn't know about it? Or is it really showing up in front of me because I know about it?
It's really, it's elementary to a certain extent. I watch some videos where, and some people think it's a waste of time because I can't find what they're finding necessarily, but I watch people when they're filming going to garage sales or rummage sales. I just watch how they pick, what they're doing, grabbing stuff. And like, I went to a church rummage sale and I was on my way out the door and I saw this cat with wings that was an ornament. It really looked like it was sold at the Dollar Tree. It looked that cheap. But I went and picked it up, and on the bottom, it had a signature, and it was from like 1997. It was like Home Felt Creations or something like that. I thought, So, it takes me a minute to look it up. And it had a 50-cent price tag on it. So I figured, well, even if it belonged to the Dollar Tree, it's still kind of cute and people like cats. So I looked it up. The last one had sold for $50. So I went straight home. That's the first thing I listed. It sold in 2 days for $50.
So it was like a cat angel.
Yes. I think it was made out of resin. But it was the actually, the picking it up. And again, it sounds elementary, but I watch how people pick, and they're picking stuff up, looking underneath. And I saw if it hadn't had no signature, it would have gone right back on the table. It's, not worth my time. But that signature thought, if someone's going to take the time to sign it, that might be worth my time to check into it. And who would have guessed? But they were not selling often because there weren't many listed, but each one that, it had a wonderful sell-through rate. So it's like, I think to myself, why did I pick that up? But I'm learning how people do this. The people that are in the know, so to speak, the people that have been doing it for a while, they have a certain, how they can pass over things that are of no value and go straight to those things that have value. And it's like, I want to be able to do that.
Well, and everybody's looking for different stuff. So you have no idea how many people were ahead of you that looked at that ornament and just passed by because they don't like cats, or they don't do ornaments, or they don't do breakables, or that's too small, or they, whatever the reason is. And that used to intimidate me as a new seller. It's like, all these other people are going to know more than me, and I'm not going to find anything. But, even we walk away from things we don't want to work with. I don't want to ship golf clubs. I don't want to ship, stereo speakers that are big enough to put a body in. I don't want to
And
do that.
what's the name of your eBay store again?
Atlanta Golf Shop.
Exactly. No
Yeah,
golf
I know.
club.
Yeah, I know. Well, I started off selling golf shirts because that's what I was finding. All these in Atlanta, all these golf courses, and people would get shirts in their goodie bags and be the wrong size, and they just donate them. And so it was 2 or 3 other names before that, but
Okay.
I just left it at that. I was like, I gotta quit changing the name of this and just leave it alone. So I still sell golf shirts and apparel, women's golf apparel, skirts, that kind of stuff. But when I started the social media and mentoring, I have all these links built to my store, and I talk about the name of it. So I was locked in.
Mhm.
It should be called Suzanne's Mecca of Stuff. It's because it's just anything that I can make money on at this point. But okay, well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. And I am serious. I may circle back and we can come up with some specific questions about crafts, because that's overwhelming for a lot of people. They don't know what to pick. And often you'll see a lot of stuff together and don't even know, should I create one listing for all of this? We didn't even talk about yarn. We didn't even talk about kits. There's a lot more we could get into. So
Mention quickly, I did find a cross stitch pattern. It was just the pattern, the chart, but it looked unusual, and it auctioned for over $100. And that was a couple years ago. And I just checked on August 25th, the same pattern sold with 6 bids for $234. Just a pattern, nothing,
just the sheet.
no floss, no fabric, just the pattern.
You know what brand that was?
It was Mirabilla, Mirabilla Designs.
Okay, so it wasn't Dimensions or
No, and it's particularly the Lady of the Flag. They're patriotic, kind of almost like Statue of Liberty type. I don't know if it was a series, but it caught my eye that this is very different.
Mhm.
And that store, that was the store that I bought the bear, the hidden Mickey bear from.
Okay, that was a
good
shop.
Yeah, oftentimes I can't get reception in there. And again, it was 50 cents. Just buy the silly thing and do your research later. And
Well, you definitely have a handle on it now. So good for you. Okay, well, thanks again. And we will see you on the Facebook group.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, Julie, for taking time out of your busy life to come on the podcast. And not coincidentally, Julie posted this on the Facebook group a few days ago. She said, "This is a big benefit of doing what we do. Feedback from a customer. I have been looking for this exact material for 20 years. This was the fabric used for my baby blanket that I still have. After 41 years, the design is completely gone and unrecognizable. I'm beyond thrilled that I can have another one made to look just like it and cherish it for the rest of my life. Thank you so much for providing this fabric. Words cannot describe how much it means to me." And Julie said, by the way, she joined eBay the day she bought the fabric. 0 feedback buyer. Okay, I love this. You just never know when selling a random item how much it will mean to someone or even change their life. Moving on to today's trivia question. Since Julie mentioned her $600 hidden Mickey sale, what exactly is a hidden Mickey? Here's a few seconds to think about it. Okay, Disney enthusiasts already know this, but for everyone else, a hidden Mickey is a representation of Mickey Mouse that has been inserted subtly into the design of a ride, attraction, or other location in a Disney theme park, on Disney properties, in an animated film, feature-length movie, TV series, or other Disney product. The most common hidden Mickey is a formation of 3 circles that may be perceived as the silhouette of the head and ears of Mickey Mouse, often referred to by Disney aficionados as a classic Mickey. Mickeys may be painted, made up of objects such as rocks or 3 plates on a table, or be references such as someone wearing Mickey Mouse Club ears in a painting. Hidden Mickeys can take on many sizes and forms. So what we're referring to are the plush bears usually. I think there's some bunny rabbits too, but they have the 3 circles on the face, and that's why they're called a hidden Mickey. So as for the hidden Mickey plush market on eBay, as of this episode in September 2023, it is still thriving. The highest prices, according to Terapeak, going back 2 years, are still around $500. Prices aren't as high as they were back in the day. I remember some selling for as much as $1,200 and maybe more, but they're still a good flip. You'll definitely want to do some heavy research on these, as there are specific details regarding what makes one more valuable than another. And wouldn't it be wonderful if some of you Disney experts reached out to me to come on the podcast and talk about things like this? Because if you're not a Disney person or a Disney family, you might not know all this. Okay, that's another successful episode in the books. Next week, I have a special treat for you. Since I received such glowing feedback on the estate sale episode, I have another group effort style podcast, the jewelry edition. I love what these jewelry specialists have to say, and you will too. Thanks to all the listeners for sharing this hour with us today. Stay focused and positive, and I will be back next week. Bye for now.